What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Well Podcast. We have a special guest with us today, one of our fantastic elders, Jake Walraven. Give it up for Jake.
Thank you.
So, I dropped my phone.
Drop something.
I dropped my phone, which
It's
has
okay.
all of the notes on it.
Yep.
So, Anthony, what are we talking about today? What are we going to be talking to Jake about today?
We're just going to be talking about spiritual growth, kind of like our journeys, Jake's journey. We're going to dive into the book of Matthew maybe a little bit. Yeah, that's what we got planned for you guys today.
Cool. So, just kind of want to take a second and outline. I guess we could all take turns answering this. First, I think we should just define, what is spiritual growth? What is your definition of spiritual growth? What does it mean to you? And then we'll just kind of go around the horn and just kind of bounce off of each other and kind of talk, a little bit, pick each other's brains on what we all see it as.
Okay. Yeah. So who's going to go first?
How about you, bud?
I want me to go first?
What does spiritual growth mean to you?
Well, I think that, when we all start out as new Christians or baby Christians, we have certain things in mind that we'd like to do and accomplish. And then as time goes on, we try to fulfill those things that we want to do. And we tend to grow more and more. And we learn more and more about the Christian life and what it's all about. And so we take on different roles as we grow. And so for myself, kind of comes to mind is I have a real heart for rummage, and I sit on the rummage board. And so at one time we had some trouble finding at that time they call it a rummage master, and that's a person who's in charge of rummage, opens the doors, and kind of runs the whole thing. And I'm like, and so they were looking for someone to do that.
Yeah.
And and they're like, well, what about you, Jake? And I'm like, well, it's kind of tough. It's a big job, but I think as we go on, the Lord opens doors for us, and even though if we feel like we're not ready to do something like that, you have to be able to step out of your comfort zone and do it, and just step out in faith and just do it. Get in there and make it happen. You pray about it, and you just get out of your comfort zone. I was like, whoa, it's a big job and it's kind of scary and all this, and I don't think I'm ready, just little old me. And but I went ahead and stepped out and did it, and it was a fantastic experience for me. I really learned a lot, met a lot of really cool people, and grew from it, and learned a lot. Yeah.
I think it's really funny how more often than not, growth is something that we don't really ever kind of plan on doing. It's just kind of just something that just happens. You know, it's so strange how more often than not, growth is just always kind of a sink or swim scenario. Like it's really do or die whenever you are confronted with those situations and those experiences in which you are forced to grow. It's never like, hey, I think I'm gonna grow today, and I'm just gonna do what I do and just grow. It's always just kind of like oh shoot, like I'm gonna do this thing, and you don't even realize that you're growing until after you like look back and you're like, wow, like so much has happened.
I mean, it's just like height,
Yeah.
It's like we don't grow to be 6 feet over a night of sleep. You know what I mean?
Some of us never grow to be 6 feet.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like that one time I got harassed in the staff meeting because I said 6 feet is an average height. No, I mean, like spiritual growth for me, personally, is that kind of like that come to moment at first. It's like for many people, just like myself, I mean, it was camp, right? Like you're surrounded by all these people and you're like, it's kind of crazy at first. And then you kind of just get into it, but kind of going and bouncing off of what Jake said, it's also about turning what and your hobbies and your talents and throwing that to God, and how can we use that in our faith, right? Like for Casey, it's playing music, and then you see him on stage every week. For me, it's making art or filming or taking photos and things like that. I think that's kind of like the journey of growing, is trying to figure out, okay, how can I implement what I do in my everyday life in my faith life, and then combine them into one. Like it's not two separate lives, it's one, right? Like sometimes we all get caught up like wearing like that mask, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna go to youth group and be cool, and then I'm gonna go to high school or something and just act totally different, right? But I mean, for me, it was always about combining the two, as well as being super open about it. I remember when I was in high school was like having that supportive friend group. Like a lot of them weren't Christian, but I was, and they knew I was, but we never had conflict with it. It was more of like, hey, like I support you, and I'll like, and then it was the same. Like he's like, okay, like I'm supporting you, like I'll support you back, So I kind of surrounded myself by people that were positive in that way, Christian or not, too. But I don't know. That's kind of what spiritual growth kind of means to me. How about you, bud? Or do you have any bounce back?
It's like, what does it mean personally to me? I think, kind of like what I was saying before, it's for me, in my experience with it, it's always been something that I was never prepared for. No. Like all the times where I've spiritually grown is times where I'd been in situations where I literally had no choice but to lean on God and lean on His Word and lean on His promises, and like everything, like all of the other facets in my life, all of the other, I guess, crutches you could call them, were just like stripped away, and like all that was left was just myself and God, and it's like it's been interesting because it's always downfall, It's always downfall that leads to my biggest growth. It's always failure and making mistakes, and it's weird. Because now, especially in this season of my life, I've just been incredibly just afraid of failing just in anything, whether it's work, in relationships, whatever it may be. I am terrified of failing, even though that my greatest growth has come from failing. And even as I'm saying this right now, I'm literally just like, oh yeah, huh? Like that's weird. Like I don't,
Yeah.
It's just a thing that's coming to me right now.
Success comes through failure. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of famous people that started companies, a lot of great people throughout the world that know that every time you fail, you build off of that toward your success. Mm-hmm. And so failure can be a really, a good thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
in a way.
At the moment, it's not all great, but it can be a good thing if we look back on it and build from it and move forward from that.
Well, like I remember kind of bouncing on the same thing as like I was working on this commercial, and we're all sitting at lunch, and the director of photography is like, hey, so how long have you worked in the industry? And I'm like, not long. Like, I'm still fairly new to this, really haven't worked on that many big things. And he jokingly said to me, like, oh, like, so I could call you out when you fail. And I'm like, I hope you do, because I'm not going to learn if you don't. Right? Like, I'm not going to exceed at this craft if you don't call me out to fail. And it kind of just took him by, like, surprise. Like, he just didn't expect that answer, and that was a cool little moment that I've always remembered, and I took, from that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at different verses right now.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to
start rambling.
Yeah.
Not fair.
And that kind of leads us into the next question. We kind of already answered it a little bit, Maybe we can dive into more specificity with this, but just what are some examples or experiences in which you've experienced spiritual growth, and maybe even, what's a situation in which you can feel yourself growing right now? I mean, we kind of established a little bit, usually you don't notice that you're growing until you're out of it.
Yeah.
But if there is, a situation where you're growing right now, what is that, or what are ways that you've experienced it in the past?
Yeah. The one that comes up to mind, I mean, is another camp thing. So back in January, I was in this position where I was stepping up more as a volunteer for the youth group, and they didn't have any male leaders to go to youth group and counsel the kids up at camp. And I was like, okay, like I'll do it. And I remember that weekend, just not just it being a fun weekend, but like me talking to like a lot of the staff up there and realizing like this is something I want to do. Like this is like, it was like that pivotal moment where I'm like, maybe I should step in the youth ministry. And like our youth group was, at the time, didn't have anybody in charge of it, and I'm the one that had the free schedule to do it. But like going to junior high winter camp was that moment for me where I'm like, I am teaching kids right now up here, as well as just like what the pastor talked about and things like that were just hitting home with me, as well as talking to the staff up there. Like one guy in particular is Caleb, and I still talk to him to this day. But I remember just growing this bond with him, and we're just talking, and that was like that moment where I'm like, this is like, we had this conversation about like, I don't know how I could talk to kids, right? Like this is something I struggle with. And then we had this beautiful conversation, and then like in that moment is realized like, I want to go head first into this. And then literally like within less than a month, I was in charge of the youth group, and then going back up to Forest Town with the high schoolers, which I've never done before. Like I've never led high school camp. I was always teaching junior high. So that was just an eye-opening experience for me, and like as well as not just for myself growing, but watching you guys grow in your faith, like watching the youth grow in their faith. Like that was a huge thing, like being able to baptize 2 students up there and just seeing their commitment, where it's like, hey, like we want to be dunked in this like freezing river and go all in as well. So like at the same moment where I was going all in, they were going all in, and it was just this emotional time, and it was just probably one of the best camps I've ever been to, and like experience wise, and then just growing closer to the students as well, like was just a huge thing. So like that's kind of like a couple ways where I've experienced growth in myself, as well as watching students grow. Is just, it's as remarkable as kind of just seeing it like happen,
That's cool. Yeah, I saw the some video footage of that.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like, you were connecting with them, and they with you, and through the Holy Spirit, and it was just a really awesome time. And I know my grandson, he was really happy and glad that you were there, and he had a great time. And, we're really glad that you stepped up and did that.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, like, I don't know, just like your grandson in particular, I love the bond that we have with him. Like Casey and I just get along with him so much, and I'm glad to be a support, in his life. And that's just like a huge thing to me. And it as well as like earlier today, I was talking to a parent of a student, and they said to me like, you don't understand like how much you mean to this student, right? Like you've had a huge impact on their life. And that was just a huge thing, and that led into this like hour conversation on like how this student struggled, and we've, like Casey and I both have helped this student grow in their faith, and having conversations with them, about pursuing a job in ministry. Like that's what they want to do, and I found out like earlier too from said parent that, like this student wrote a paper on how they wanted to pursue a job in ministry and get shot down by the teacher. Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. And then Casey and I to come along and just treat people with kindness and just kind of go in there and not realizing that we were having a huge impact on someone's life. That was like a huge conversation for me today. You know, like I just never expected it. And it's funny how we're sitting here now kind of talking about spiritual growth and things like that. But that, I mean, that's how God, you know, works and moves, man. Like it's just, it's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's cool. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you have a moment in particular, Casey?
No,
No?
I've never grown a day in my life.
Yeah, sounds about right. That's why he's shorter than me.
It's because the reason why I'm so short, and I mean, I'm like 5'11". I'm not even that short. I mean, well, I'm not even going to dive into that conversation.
You're pretty tall, bud.
The reason why I'm not above 6 foot is because I started drinking coffee at like the age of like 13. That's why.
Stop drinking your milk.
What's funny is that I drank milk and coffee, so I think I like kind of leveled out.
Jokes on you. I've never drinking milk a day in my life. Just kidding.
R.I.P. to Anthony's bones.
Never broken a bone.
What?
I've never broken a bone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Neither have I. I've come close.
Knocking on wood. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Jake rides motorcycles. He's bound to happen.
Is that good?
I mean, we're
Is that gonna
we're
work?
adjusting your levels, man.
Okay.
So you're good.
All right.
No, I think. Yeah, I'm not going to dive into specifics, but definitely just, you know, when the times where I've grown the most are the times where, kind of like what I said before, just where I've been like at my weakest, at my most vulnerable. When I tried lifting a load on my own and I was reduced to nothing.
Yeah.
And I kind of had no choice but to, you know, like the only thing that could help me was God. The only person or, you know, anything that could be there for me was God. And through those experiences, you know, my mom's favorite animal is a frog because of the acronym Fully Rely on God.
That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that.
And like that's kind of something that I like kind of had to forcefully do because I wasn't, you know, relying on God as much as I should have been. So I was forced to rely on Him and His presence and His goodness and what He was doing in my life. And so I guess my greatest growth is folly, comes from folly, and pain, and honestly, just, you know, when you're a kid and you're, you know, riding your bike, you're learning how to ride your bike, and your dad, you know, pushes you, and then he lets go, and then you just eat it. Like that's kind of like a representation of, you know, my spiritual growth, and I know I'm not done falling on my face yet, you know.
Right.
I have a lot more spills to take before I mean, I'm never done growing. I'm pretty sure even when I'm, you know, 90, if I make it that far, like there's still going to be lots of spills that I'm going to take in which I'm going to be able to grow from. There's going to be a lot of times where I screw up, both relationally and just mentally and spiritually. There's a lot of screw ups to be had in life in general. Yeah. So as kind of, I guess, embarrassing as it is to say, my mistakes have sparked my greatest growths.
Well, you're never going to be fully perfect or fully grown until we get to heaven. Mm-hmm. As long as we're here on earth, we're always going to be struggling some way or another. It's going to be a tough road, and we do our best to to get to where we need to be, but it's a lot of ups and downs, and you know, our human nature takes over.
Yeah, that's why I got my little wave tattoo, surprisingly. To remind me, like, we're all just kind of like waves. I mean, like, we'll crash, you know, we'll fill out rock bottom, but we could always rise again.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I have the little little wave tattoo on my arm.
Yeah. I think for me is, and it kind of goes in part with like my testimony. I've known Christ for a long time. Ever since I was a little kid, there was always someone or some person, speaking to me about church and God and Jesus and my wife and I, we've been members of this church now for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Dang.
But it's not really that until like this waves that you're talking about, to where I went full in 10 years ago when I got the diagnosis that I had cancer. And then when that happened is when I really realized that, dude, I like spiritually bankrupt, I was just really like hanging on, but I didn't really have Christ in my life enough to I was looking for some help, but it was just like, it wasn't 100% there because I wasn't 100% there.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I told myself, well, this is it. I'm just gonna jump in headlong, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be a Christian 100%. Ain't gonna be no more messing around. I knew I'd be, there'd be mistakes and all that, but I'm just gonna do it. And so I read my Bible and going to church and being serious about it. And my bank account started filling up, and then I felt a lot better. And the spiritual growth for me, that was just a huge input of growth in my life at that time. And then this peace came over me, to where I knew that, if God wanted to cure me, He would. If not, and I went on to heaven, that's okay too,
Yeah.
And you get this peace over it to where nothing on this world can fulfill the peace of Christ. You can get your bikes and your cars and your stuff and all this and that. Means nothing really, because they're all just like the rust and the moths,
Yeah.
And but when we have Christ, we thrive through that, and it makes such a big difference in our lives to where I know it did for mine for sure.
Yeah.
It just filled me up, and I just feel so much better having Christ in my life, and I really have met some really fantastic people. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be here with these guys right now. They're the greatest, and to know Casey and Anthony is just a real blessing in my life, and so many wonderful people that I've met through this time, these last 10 years, at the relationships that I've built and the people that I've met. My life is just, it's been fantastic, really great, and I'm just so blessed to be here today. And of course, my diagnosis has been cleared for a long time now, praise God, and so I feel that I have some work that needs to be done, and so I'm trying to do that as best as I can, within my meagerly abilities, and just to try to help as much as I can, and give it back to the Lord, and praise His name and through it all. Yeah,
That's awesome. I think it's really interesting the analogy that you used of spiritual bankruptcy.
yes,
Because it's so weird, because that's kind of what it feels like, I know I've had times in my life, most specifically like through my teen years, like from like 17 and 18, probably until I was probably like, halfway through 18, 19 years old, where I I was just kind of like, like I guess, like, we're sticking with that analogy, like I was just spending all my money, like I was just spending like I got it, I was kind of just letting loose. It was just like a really dark time, and there was just, just kind of funds going here, funds going there, and before I realized that I was at rock bottom.
yeah,
spiritually and emotionally. And it's such a weird thing because you don't realize that it's just like growth. You don't realize that you're in that rock bottom area, that bedrock, until you're there, until you're just on your face and you're hurting.
Right.
And it's such a, I guess you could say it's like a humbling feeling, because you're like, oh, like this actually can go wrong, you know? I feel like when we're out there, you know, spending all that money, like it's just like, you know, I'm living, you know, I'm just doing my thing, you know, I'm just living my best life, you know? And once we hit that place, it's just like, oh crap. Like, what happened? Like, where am I? How did I get here? How did this happen?
Yeah.
I'm empty. I have nothing, you know? And it's so sobering. And it's super crazy. It's such a crazy feeling.
Well, I think that happens a lot, you know, to people when they hit bottom. So there's like a saying that goes around. He hasn't quite hit bottom yet. When he hits bottom, he'll realize that, you know. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we have to go through some kind of extreme. People have to go to jail or whatever, or lose things before we really realize that, you know, we need to turn our lives around and give our hearts and minds to Christ. And through him, he can help us come back up. And it's unfortunate that it has to be that way. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't know, this is kind of wild to think. Like, it's something you don't really think about until it's kind of sad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it is true. Like, we kind of grow and grow closer through loss and heartache. You know, which is just this insane, crazy thing. You know.
Yeah.
There was one analogy that I heard once. It was kind of equating growth to like how muscle is built, you know. When you go to the gym, the whole reason for, you know, lifting weights and things like that is to break down your muscles. And then once your muscles are broken down, then they can more effectively absorb proteins and grow. And I think that's such like a wild analogy that's like kind of built into us, you know, like biologically we cannot grow unless we are broken down. And I think that's like such a cool thing that's kind of written into our framework that is also very reflective of us mentally and spiritually too. Like we cannot grow unless we're out of our comfort zone, unless we are broken down, unless we are I don't want to say at the end of our rope, but unless we, you know, kind of reach these limits, you know. And I think it's just a neat way to look at it and to look at growth and to look at the opportunity for growth.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to discourage anyone. You know, you're hearing this, that to where I got to be at the bottom before I could grow. That you know, that happens quite a bit to people. It's true, but at the same time, you could be like a new Christian, and maybe Casey or Anthony might ask you to do something, and you're like, no, you know, I'm not ready for that. But if they could see it in you, and then you do it, and you step in faith and do it, then you could grow that way too. I mean, you know, it doesn't always have to be like you say, at the end of your rope or at rock bottom. Yeah. You know, I want to encourage a lot of the young people to, you know, to step out and in faith and go forward and try new things. And if you do that, you'll grow and you'll learn.
I once did a mission trip with this organization called Surfing the Nations. And their logo is like an S, a T, and an N, just like normal. And then they have this little box at the end of their logo. It's just like a little square. And when, like, I think it was like one of the last days that we were there doing that mission trip, and they were telling us, you know, that square in the logo represents your comfort zone. And that's always a reminder to step outside of it, because you're never going to learn something new unless you step outside of it. And it's funny because, like, I just kind of was re-met with that yesterday, working a second job over at the Townsend Farmers Market, shameless plug, over in Apple Valley. And I was talking to my boss, and he was talking about vinyl wrapping trash cans. And he was like, yeah, just pick out a day where you want to do that. And I was like, I've never done that before. Like, I have no idea how to do that. And he goes, well, no time like the present.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, I guess I'm going to learn how to do that now. And it's just super, it was like, oh yeah, like, I can always learn new things. Yeah. You know, I don't have to be a master at everything, you know, as soon as I jump into it. You know, there's always room to just step outside of my comfort zone, because I could be good at vinyl wrapping trash cans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's always...
It'd be new living for you.
Right?
Retire music, start vinyl wrapping.
There's no ceiling for growth, and there's no reason to not push out of your comfort zone.
That's right.
Yeah.
From anything, you know, as small as like listening to a new kind of music, all the way to, you know, switching your major in college. I mean, not that I recommend that anybody just like willy-nilly switch their major in college. I mean, just don't be against it.
I'm a 2-time college dropout, so I get it.
The closest I ever got to college was signing up for classes, and then just like realizing that I wasn't gonna put money into something that I wasn't going to put my effort into as well. And I know that when I'm ready, I guess that even that's like an example of a comfort zone thing. Like, I could do college and it could be a great growth for me. But yeah, it's so interesting just how even the littlest things can be a baby step outside of your comfort zone, can lead to such a huge monumental thing later on in your life.
Yeah. And too, you know, if you step out and you try it, and then you find out, well, it didn't work out for me, and I didn't like it. Well, then at least you tried, you know. And so the next time it happens, it's like a spiritual gift. Your spiritual gifts. To try to find out what that is, you have to try different things. And once you know what your spiritual gift is, and then you can just really excel at that, you know. But you're not going to know until you try. So go out and try it. Don't make a real hard commitment to it. Just try it and see. And if that's not for you, then once your commitment is ended, then on that particular assignment, then go on and do something else and keep trying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it also comes from just like surrounding yourself from the right people too. I mean, like, it could be just as simple as like your boss, like, pushing you to do something, or like your friend pushing you to do something, you know. Like, I mean, for me, like, the one example that comes into my mind was in college, ironically. I was in this cinematography class for film, and it was to this day where we all had to like recreate famous lighting scenes for like movies. And we're sitting in this group of like 15 people, and the teacher's like, all right, who wants to be director of photography for today? And I just was like in the back, and it's just dead silent, and I sighed. And he's like, Anthony, you're director of photography for today. I was like, man, like, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Like, I know lighting, but like, this is intimidating. And then I have this guy that I look up to, like, saying, hey, do it. Like, I think you're capable of doing it. And then like exceeding at it, like just nailing it. And that was like that huge moment for me. I'm like, oh, I could do this. Like, I could film, you know what I mean? Like, and then like having other incidents like in that class too was like, because our class was split up in half, and the other half had a different teacher. And like some girl walked in and is like, why does your class get out like earlier? And then like the teacher's like, you really want to know why? It's because Anthony shaves off 15 minutes of class time by himself. I was like, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, it made me feel good. And I'm like, that's right, Amanda. And I was like, walked out. But yeah, no, it's for me, it's like that, just sometimes having that right person just push you, you know, just like that little nudge you need, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny. It's funny that you say that, because it makes me think of like where I am now in my life. Because like me leading worship, like, and you know, me leading worship wasn't my idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I said, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. And, you know, it's going to be my thing. It actually came from like a season of when I was over at High Desert Church, when we just lost a couple of people. They found other opportunities and they moved, you know, away. And we needed someone to kind of step in and fill in over there.
Yeah.
And I was 18 at the time, I think. And one of the staff over there, he's now, I think he's the small groups pastor now. Shout out to Mikey Powers. He came up to me and he goes, hey, have you like thought about, you know, throwing your name in the hat to, you know, step in and fill in and lead worship while we're, you know, needing people? And I was like, no, like there's no way that I could step into that. And he goes, no, like do it, like ask, like the least you could do is ask. And then like, I talked to the pastor who was managing those services at the time, and then he let me do it. I led those services, and then one thing led to the next, and then I ended up getting hired on as the worship director at Bear Valley Church in Big Bear, and I did that for 2 years before I came here, and it was just stuff that I don't want to say it wasn't supposed to happen, but I had no intention on it happening.
Well, it's like recently, I mean, with you as well, is I remember both of us stepping up in the youth ministry, and me and you having these conversations, and it's like, hey, like, I want to help you, but like, I'm intimidated by it, right? And I was like, dude, like, okay, cool. Like, and then we arranged it, like, okay, like, let's have you try it, you know? And then you teaching the lesson, I'm like sitting in the back room, like, dang, dude, Casey's killing it right now. He's doing such a good job, like, you know? And then it's just like, now, like, you just diving into it and just seeing you just keep succeeding at just delivering these lessons to the youth is a beautiful thing. Cause like at first, like, I mean, me too, like we're both like very intimidated by it. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, I don't even know if I belong in youth group. Right. You know? And then seeing you just go head first and just strive in it has been like just a cool like thing, like just leading from this small conversation to that. And I was like, this is crazy. You know?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Gotcha, bud.
I feel like you have something to say, Jake. I see the gears turning over there.
Well, earlier I know we were talking about college and going to school, and when you guys invited me to come over, and I was thinking about some things that I'd like to say, and because my opinions about college and learning is, I don't think that college is not always for everyone. You know, like myself, college wasn't for me because, well, I'm a gearhead, and I turn wrenches, and I work on things, and I fix things, and I work at the mine, and we work on heavy equipment there, and that's a good living, and it's union wages and benefits, and I went to the junior college and got some automotive and some diesel classes, and I went to a correspondence school. That was something I did when I was really young because I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I'm really blessed to be able to make money doing something that I really like to do. And so I feel that sometimes if you go to college, that may not always pan out for you, and that there's other options, like technical schools or things like that, or that you can go to some classes at junior college that you might be able to take, and it gets you into the field that you want to be at an entry level, and then you can move forward from there and progress up through the company or through different companies, and then you're not tied down with a lot of student debt. You don't tie yourself up with at school while your friends are making money and you're trying to learn English and math when that really doesn't even have anything to do with what you want to do. And so that, that's my opinion about that today. And I know that there's a lot of job openings that are for blue collar workers that are opening up because people in my generation are retiring, and there's going to be a lot of openings for welders and plumbers and mechanics and technicians, and electronics is huge.
Yeah.
And so not to cut down college if that's what you want to do, and you feel that that's where you need to be, but it's not always for everyone, and it's not always the answer to everything. You may take some classes at a junior college, like for electronics or whatever, welding or whatever that may be, and that's going to get you into an entry level position at a good company. I've been at that company for 35 years. This just last month. Yeah. And I started out just sweeping the floors, but I had some mechanical experience already, and so that when the jobs opened up, I was able to go in a apprentice level, and then work up.
Yeah, because you already had your foot in the door.
Yeah, I already had my foot in the door. Already had some experience, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I waited for that opportunity, and then I took it within the company. And it's been great. So
well, I think that that's a big thing, and I think all three of us could really agree. I'm super big on follow your dreams. Just go, give it 110%. If you like something and that's what you want to do, give it your all. It's gonna suck at first, and you're gonna go through these hardships, and you're gonna feel like you're at rock bottom. But if you just keep pushing for it, and you just keep going and going and going, you'll eventually get it. And you'll eventually succeed at what you want to do. And that's just that's always been a big thing in my life, is just giving my craft my all. How can I get better at that? And you're always constantly learning, but as well as just wanting it and wanting it and wanting it.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing. Is and I try to tell my grandsons this, is that they need to decide early on what it is that they want to do. And once you've decided on where your passion's at, what you really like to do, and it's an old saying my father used to tell me, is that you don't want to get up in the morning and say, oh no, I got to go back to work again to a job that you really don't want to do. You want a job to where you can feel happy and secure in and doing the thing that you like to do. Now, I understand that sometimes it's difficult and people have to do other things than that they would prefer to do. But if you try to keep the dream alive, if you have to work doing something else, maybe you could take a class at the junior college, or you could take an online class or something like that, and then always trying to strive, like what you said, for that end goal of the employment that you really would want to do.
Yeah.
So I just kind of thought I'd throw that in there. I know it's a little off subject, but that's my take on college and learning like that.
I mean, it still kind of ties in. I mean, that's how we grow.
It's still a matter of growth. Yeah. Oh, we're strictly audio now.
That's all right.
The video just died.
Let me just go and save that. Well, Casey does.
Yeah. So it's funny, we're talking about growth, and I was gonna say something. I had a train of thought. It derailed itself, and now I have no idea where I'm at.
Well, we were talking about college and jobs, and
Oh yeah.
Things
So
like that.
so I had this mentor at the last church that I was at. Shout out to Michael White if you're listening. But he taught me. He actually told me to say this thing regarding relationships, but I think it also very well works for work environments too. And it's like just kind of praying, like, God, if you're not in this, if I'm not supposed to be here, if you don't want me here, don't let me be. Like, just like take it away from me because I don't want it if you're not in it. And kind of just like leaning on faith and just kind of, you know, kind of telling God that you're in it to win it with him rather than just kind of like, you know, going on your own intuition with things, I think is a valuable concept and principle to kind of, you know, throw into, you know, things that you're doing. And I like what you said, Anthony, also about, you know, just following your dreams, and what you said, Jake, about, you know, not wanting to, you know, wake up and being like, oh crap, I gotta go to work. Like, I don't, and like, I mean,
Right.
of course, you know, some days are better than others, but
Yeah.
like having that be the fact of the matter every single day is definitely not,
No.
not what we want.
No.
And I think, because that's when you go down that road, you know, when you do something that God is not in, and something that you don't necessarily want to do, but, you know, that's how people, you know, have midlife crises.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how,
Yeah.
you know, out of nowhere, you know, you'll get a face tattoo and, you know, spend a ridiculous amount of money on a car just because it's there, just to feel like you're alive, you know, and don't get face tattoos. It's probably not worth the pain and the lifelong debt of looking in the mirror and seeing a tattoo on your face. I'm not against tattoos in general. Just I don't think face tattoos are a good idea. Even if you're Post Malone, I'm sorry, Austin, but I just don't think it's a good idea. But yeah, like, you have to love what you're doing. You have to be able to you have to have the emotional real estate in what you're doing and the spiritual real estate in what you're doing. It has to be fulfilling. It has to bring you joy. And it has to, I think, honestly, it's even more fulfilling when you're doing something that brings others joy as well.
Yes. Yes.
I think if you can help it, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone has to be a doctor or a nurse, but like, I'm sure that those are things that, you know, people find fulfillment with those career paths. I mean, one, because they make money, but two, because they're helping people.
Right.
And they are, you know, people like say, like, you know, I'm sure hearing literally "you saved my life" is just something that does numbers, and I think that's really fulfilling for them. I can't speak for them because I'm not a doctor.
Well, I mean, we could see that in so many, even in our fields. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's like you getting an applause after a song, right? Or it's like seeing something happen in youth group where, like, yeah, like that kid gets it, right?
Yeah.
Or like, for me, it's like getting emotion out of someone, like watching, like I worked on a film and then they like cried or they laughed or they like, I'm like, oh, they got it, you know, like that's one of the most rewarding feelings to me. It was like, I did it, like that, like I got someone to cry in the movie theater. I did that, right? Like, but
Right.
it's just such a good feeling, right? Like, and I mean, that's probably like why nurses do their jobs too, is like, you know, they feel good after what they've done. Like, it's the most rewarding thing to them, right? Like, you playing music in front of people, you know, and it being like, oh, the band's got it. Like, you know, the drummer was on time and like we just killed it, and like everybody's clapping and they get it. Like, it's probably one of the most rewarding feelings to you as well.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most powerful moments I've ever felt is when it was it was actually right after. It was right after Pastor Jake passed away, and we were doing. I think it was the weekend after, and we sang a song. I can't remember what song it was, but you could see that people around the room were feeling free to grieve, and they were just emotionally just letting out what they needed to, and there was healing happening through that grief and through that sharing of sadness, and seeing just that, everyone felt comfortable enough in that moment, in that space, to open themselves up in that way and to all be on the same page emotionally was just, it was so powerful. And I was just, that was a huge moment for me, just when people are so emotionally just in it.
Yeah, it was a really hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're still having a hard time processing that, It was just so sudden.
It was unexpected.
Yeah.
It took everybody off guard, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being on the train going to LA when I heard about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is nuts. Like, it's not happening,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's a surreal thing, for sure.
Yeah. But, Casey, music, it has a way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can bring that to the people, that's an awesome accomplishment that you can do. And I know, Anthony, you said doctors and nurses, but I was going to say teachers.
Yeah, that's
teachers,
true. It's a big thing.
They can, they really seal that in their students. There's been a lot of great stories about some really good teachers.
What's so funny is I'm still friends with a lot of my high school teachers.
Yeah.
Like, on a personal level, like, we're like, I'll just go to their house for dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just they're like part of the family,
Yeah.
And it's cool to have that relationship with, like, this person taught me film in high school, and they're getting to see, like, that's probably so rewarding for them, is like, I inspired this kid to take this career path, and look at him now, and like, we've worked on sets and stuff together as well, and it's cool. Like, that's also rewarding for me. Like,
sure.
When you have one of your like, I've had a couple moments where I'm like, I'm doing a higher job than my mentor, like, we're working on the same set, and I'm like the higher up. Like, one of the guys who got me on my first set, I got him on this movie I worked on, which was the biggest movie I worked on, and probably the biggest movie he's worked on. And I had like one of the higher job titles, and it was just funny how, like, this guy's getting me water now, like, that was like just crazy, like, moment for me where I'm like, wow, like, I don't know, it's just crazy. It was like God, like, worked in my life where I'm like, oh wow, like, I'm living my dream, like, I made it, know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, praise God for that. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've had a pretty cool and productive conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
In all this, thank you, Jake, for reaching out and wanting to be on the podcast. Thank you, Anthony, for being Anthony and being tall.
Thank you, Casey, for being you.
For being short.
Short with a good voice and knows how to mix audio. Because you know why? Audio's still going and video isn't. So that tells you.
I just know how to keep space on my hard drive. That's all.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, if you guys have topics that you want us to talk about, if you have people that you want us to talk to on the podcast, Jake, if you want to be on again, we'd love to have you. Just make sure that it's like at least 3 shows down the road. And I'm just kidding.
Okay. So good.
No, we do appreciate talking to you and just, picking your brain on some stuff and just, I'm sure everybody that's listening is appreciating hearing a different voice other than just Anthony and I.
True. And for those who are new or haven't tuned in before, you could, obviously comment on the YouTube, Church of the Valley video, or you could DM us at @thewell_COV on Instagram.
Or even Facebook message the Church of the Valley Facebook page.
Yeah.
Just we want to hear feedback. We want to hear topics to talk about, because we can only just, pull stuff out of our own hats for so long. We just need to.
Yeah.
We can't grow without your guys' feedback and help.
That was good. That was solid.
Thank you.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, you guys, for having me here. Like I say, our relationships and it's been awesome. It's really good to know you guys, and I look forward to spending many more years together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And learning and growing. It's been awesome, and I'm looking forward to when this whole COVID thing eases off to where we can start meeting together once again. Well, however that may look like. I'm sure it's going to be a little modified, but church will open again, and we will be back to relatively normal. And I really look forward to seeing our church family getting back to Rummage and all the different ministries. There's just so much work that needs to be done, and so many people that need help, and so many lives that continue to need to know about Christ, and looking forward to getting back in that and getting face to face with people.
I feel like our congregation's gonna be stronger, after this. We're gonna be a lot more tight knit. It's gonna be interesting to see that growth, within our congregation of like actually bonding. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be different. I'm looking forward to it.
I've really missed seeing a lot of people's faces on Sunday mornings. It's been hard.
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, that's been our daily schedule for so long, and then boom, just like that's gone.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
So, thanks a lot, guys.
Of course. Casey, you want to pray for us, and then we'll end this thing?
Yeah. I'd be glad to pray for us. God, thank you just for today, and thank you for just giving us opportunities each and every day to grow. We just thank you for that. We thank you for there never being a ceiling for our growth, God. And we just pray that you would continue to teach us, that you continue to be with us, that you continue to keep us safe during this pandemic. We just thank you for Jake and just his faithfulness to you and his heart for you and your church. And we just pray for everyone listening right now, God, that you would be with everyone, that you would keep them safe, and that you would just do awesome things in the way that only you can do, God, in everyone's lives that's listening. We thank you. We love you. We praise you. And we praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, cool. We'll see. We're
still getting used to this. You'll listen to us next week.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you. Is subscribing a thing for podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Subscribe, comment, and we will catch you later. Take care, guys.
Bye.